So, good evening. We are back to the study of the Spirit's book. We are on book 4, chapter 1, Earthly Joys and Sorrows. And today we start a very difficult subject, very not easy to study, which is Distaste for Life Suicide, question 943. Before we start, just a reminder to everyone that like we learned that all reincarnations are different from each other and all discarnations are also different from each other. Of course, all suicides are different from each other, and we cannot generalize the consequences of suicide applying to everyone. Each case is a case. We know, according to Spiritism, that we have no right to take our own life. But the consequences for this action is according to what we were passing through, the situations, the experiences we were having, our mental condition, and everything else. So there is a tendency in Spiritism when we learn that suicide is against the natural law, that suicide is a serious act, that something that we generally bring from the Catholic Church, right? That condemn suicide and do not have masses for suicides. In the past, wouldn't bury suicides in the church graveyards. So I think we all carry a little bit of this into Spiritism, and when we talk about suicide and we learn that suicide is against the natural law and is a very serious act, we have a tendency to generally condemn all that commit suicide without reflecting and analyzing like we should do in Spiritism, which is with empathy, with compassion, and with desire to help and assist the victims. Okay? So I'm going to ask Zoraida to read for us 942.
Okay.
Zoraida?
Okay, yes. Distaste for life, suicide, 943. What causes the distaste for life that sometimes takes hold of people without any discernible reason? Idleness, lack of faith, and often sanity. When people use their abilities in the pursuit of some useful aim that is in line with their natural aptitudes, their work is not dull. Life passes quickly, and they are able to bear the reversals of life patiently and with resignation. They look forward to a more solid and lasting happiness in the future.
So here, the first question is a very general question, right? What causes people to commit suicide? And the answer from the spirits is idleness, lack of faith, and society, right? Which is, you know, getting bored with life in a sense, right? We're going to go a little deeper in terms of mental imbalances, of grave situations that happens in our lives. But here we're talking about those that kill themselves because they are tired of life, because they don't believe in the afterlife. They think that the easiest way out is just to kill oneself. One thing here that's not here in the Spirit's book, but it's an important reference that we learn from psychiatrists and from those that study suicide outside of Spiritism. Each person that commits suicide directly affects 6 people on average. So relatives, loved ones, on average, you have 6 people that are profoundly affected by one person suicide. So, in that sense, and again, we are talking about the general here. We're not going yet. We are going to go there into the problems, mental problems, and other problems. But in the general sense that we are talking here, it's a selfish act, right? Because you're only thinking about fixing your issue and choosing the easy way out instead of trying to address the situation. Again, if we do something that we love, we never have to work a day in our life. So people that commit suicide, again, for no special reasons, they commit suicide because they lost the will to live. They cannot find anything interesting. They think that they don't have any purpose in life, right? And this is selfish, right? Because you are causing serious harm to your loved ones. It can be immediate family, it can be partners, it can be friends, and for the spirit that commits suicide, the state of confusion that happens after the suicide is something that takes a long time, going a little deeper into what happens to them in the return to the spiritual world. The process of recovering from a suicide in the spiritual world, in the general sense, it's a long process. First, because probably the majority, not probably, but the majority of people that commit suicide, they do it because they think that there is nothing else. They are ending everything, right? And when they realize that they didn't end life because we are eternal spirits, the sensation of pain, anger at oneself, guilty, it's overwhelming. And it's very common that you'll find spirits that commit suicide completely alienated in the spiritual world, or in a state of madness, right? Because they create, they make themselves feel so, it's so overwhelming, the sensation of something that cannot be reversed. Because when you kill you think that is going to end, and then you see that it didn't end, and that you cannot come back, it is overwhelming. You can imagine that it's overwhelming. So it's a complex act, and but we are never abandoned. That's what we are going to bring here, insist and repeat. We are never abandoned. The problem is we enter into a state of confusion, of the overwhelm that takes over us doesn't allow the suicide to open oneself to receive the help that is out there, right? So again, if we go back to Nosso Lar, André Luiz, he was not a suicide. People shout at him, calling him a suicide because of the causes of his death, that he later learned that that was the reason they were accusing him, because of his excesses. He ended up discarnating earlier than he should, and that's why they were calling him suicide. But we don't call that suicide. And for the purpose of our study today, we are going to call suicide the act committed intentionally. Okay? One has to want to die for us to consider suicide. We're not going talk about indirect suicide and other things that are things that end up killing ourselves, but not because we want to kill ourselves. It's just us being irresponsible with our lives, right? The quick example, you smoke your whole life, you die of lung cancer, right? It is an indirect suicide, but you never wanted to kill yourself. You just fell into an addiction, right? So that's not what we're going to discuss here today. Okay? Take
Okay.
care, Adam. Okay, 9:44,
Okay.
Soraya.
Yes. Do human beings have the right to dispose of their own life? No. Only God has that right. Voluntary suicide is a violation of God's law. Is suicide always voluntary? No. When a person undergoing a phase of insanity kills him or herself, they have no real knowledge of the act being committed.
Okay, so here we have two different things, right? First is clear, right? We do not have the right to end our own life. That goes against the natural law, is a violation of God's law. And the spirits talk here about voluntary suicide. Again, voluntary suicide. We're not going to talk about involuntary. And we're going to see some cases later that we may call involuntary suicide, right?
Mm.
Which is, we may choose a different name to call it, right? And then Kardec asks the spirits, if suicide is always voluntary, and the spirits say, give us the first hint of suicide committed by insanity, right? Someone that does not know what they are doing, try to kill oneself without knowledge, real knowledge of what they are doing to themselves. There is a consequence. Yes, there is, because you are making a mistake. Like there is consequence for all the mistakes we make in our lives, right? But the consequences are not the same as one that commits suicide voluntarily, kill oneself knowing what the person is doing. I know a case of a person who tried to commit suicide, cutting the wrists, and immediately after, it came to itself and called for help and was assisted, helped to the hospital. So you see, the person is not in full control of their own actions, because if you do the act, and immediately after you do it, you call someone for help, you didn't want to do it, right? You did out of lack of understanding of what you are doing. So if a person like that commits a suicide, there will be consequences, but there will be a much more prompt assistance, right? Because when you kill yourself out of insanity without knowing what you are doing, when you wake up on the other side, you didn't even know that you tried to commit suicide, because you are not aware of what happened to you. So you are in a state of confusion, like we all are when we discarnate. But then when you come back to your senses, you don't realize, because it's not something that's, those who commit voluntary suicide, they wake up on the other side and the first thought is, I didn't succeed in my attempt. And for them, some of them takes a long time to realize that. For those that have the disposition of learn more and wants to read Memoirs of a Suicide, which is the best spiritist book about suicide, but it is heavy. It's difficult to read. It's not for everyone. I read it. It's a great book. It's considered one of the top 10 spiritist books of the last century. And the one that wrote, Camilo Castelo Branco, in the beginning, he describes he committed suicide, and he describes that he was thinking all the time that he failed. He didn't succeed. And he finds himself in places and situations that it's a complete state of confusion. He has a hard time describing the environment that he is. He ends up in the cemetery, sees his body. Even seeing his body, he doesn't believe that he died. Goes to his house, sees everything in a disarray in his house, doesn't understand why everything is in disarray, goes back to the cemetery, not by his will, but he's dragged back to the cemetery. And he's rescued finally after a long suffering and taken to the hospital. And even when they are in the hospital, it's a group of 10 people, they are still discussing amongst themselves if they are dead or not, what happened. They didn't commit, some of them didn't believe. So people that commit suicide really believing that it's going to end their lives, it takes a long time for them to understand and accept. Now, in case of insanity, no, because you don't know. You don't remember that you tried that. You were not in conscious. So it's easier for the spirits to assist you, to help you, to take you to a place where you are going to be helped and assisted. So that's, you start to see the differences between the different kinds of suicide, right? But again, even if we have a loved one that committed voluntary suicide, assistance is always there. Our prayers help immensely, right? Because it serves as a balsam of comfort, of light, of hope. So it is important always to remember that they are not abandoned and that our prayers will help and assist them regardless of the way that they return to the spiritual world. Okay?
John, what
Yes.
what happens when a person takes medication, not purposely, but dies? Accidental death, then, right? Nothing to do with suicide.
Like Marilyn Monroe?
Like who?
Marilyn Monroe?
Oh, okay, Marilyn Monroe.
Yes.
Yes, right, that's yeah,
Again,
yeah.
um,
She was,
the it, it was
I thought they had killed her. I thought they killed her. Okay, but it
yeah.
wasn't that she killed herself.
Everyone thinks that she killed herself. Um,
That's what they. That's what
yeah,
they.
Humberto de Campos, brother X, had one of the books. He
Yeah.
has a conversation with her
Uh,
here in the U.S. And then she tells him that she didn't commit suicide. She didn't want
yes.
to
Right.
kill
Right. They
herself.
had that the other day. They had that on TV the other day. Matter of fact. Yeah.
Yeah, that she overdosed, but she didn't want to kill
Right.
herself. Again,
Right.
it's not voluntary, right?
No, it's not
If
right.
it's not voluntary, it goes in the same way of insanity. You have the possibility of being rescued because your first thought when you wake up on the other side is what happened to me?
It
I'm
happened.
feeling
Yes.
confused here, but what happened to me? I remember going to sleep, taking some medication, going to sleep, and then
Yes.
you wake up. So you are assisted in a more efficient way because you allow yourself to be assisted in a more efficient way because it's not a voluntary suicide. Of course, again,
Yes.
there are cases and cases, right? Because there are people that die of overdose, knowing that they are risking dying of overdose. So it's more complicated. Depends on the knowledge, the understanding. Everything depends on your awareness of what you are doing, right?
Right.
The word in spiritism comes back all the time. It's intention.
Intention, absolutely.
Intention. Yes, that's what it is. Intention.
Intention.
What's your intention? Yeah.
Marilyn Monroe didn't have the intention to kill herself.
No.
She was she was depressed because she had they diagnosed, looking back, the diagnosis they have for her is she had depression, she had mental issues, but she didn't want to kill herself.
No. Yes. Okay.
Okay, 9:45.
Okay, 9:45. What should we think of people who commit suicide because they are sick of life? Imprudent people. Why did they not seek out useful work? Life would not have seemed so heavy to them.
Yeah. Again, we talked a lot about this in the beginning, right? When
Yeah.
we talk about people that commit suicide because they are tired of life. But when I read this, why did they not seek useful work? I remember Steve Hawkins, right? Completely
Yes.
unable to do anything by himself, completely had to live a life without any ability to do any physical thing by himself, but he had his mind working for him all the time. Useful work. Of course, we are not all Steve Hawkins, but
Yeah.
it's the extreme. He could do that because, according to the material thought, right? If we think materially, he had all the reasons to kill himself, right? Or to ask for someone to kill himself, to kill him, right? Because he had no ability of doing anything. He was attached to a wheelchair and everything. And instead, he chose to live and he chose to work and left us a beautiful work, study of continuing the work of Einstein and so many good things that I'm not able to explain what he brought, but it's just the example, right? So it is possible, it is achievable, and people that justify their killing themselves because they are bored of life, because they are sick of life, has no justification. It's not a valid justification. And of course, the consequence will be more serious than the ones that are doing out of desperation or other things, right? Because again, someone that commits suicide because they are bored of life, someone that commits suicide because they, like we are going to see here, to escape because they are lost everything or are sick, very sick. These are things we're going to see. But someone that kills oneself because they are bored of life, they are sick of life, it's difficult to justify, right? It's difficult to find how they are going to find help in the short term, right? Because they are going to, these are the people that are going to feel guilty, overwhelmed with guilt back in the spiritual world.
In this answer in 943, this just brings the concept of work. That in our field, work is preventive medication for many of those illnesses of the soul. And Judge Andreas used to, as a spiritual psychiatrist, says that work therapy for those who are already sick. The treatment for depression, anxiety, work. Work therapy is the greatest thing. Now, in 142, if you go back to it, it's important when the spirits talk about work, they use the same translation. I think it's the same translation as well. When people use the ability for the purpose of some useful way, that is in line with the natural aptitudes. The work's not done. So, and they highlight here in line with their natural aptitudes. This is still important because I have this natural aptitude to do some kind of work that I like, that's something that but it doesn't pay well when, I don't want to do this because I want to make more money. And you choose a career that you make more money, but you are not happy doing that. So because of material gains, you place yourself at risk of eventually getting bored with life because you're doing something that you don't like. And you make that, a bank account with a bunch of big numbers in it, but your life is boring. You have no contentment anymore. And then if you don't have spirituality, it's easy to commit suicide.
Mm. Okay.
946. Yes.
Okay. What should we think of people who resort to suicide to escape from the troubles and disappointments of this world? Poor spirits who lack the courage to bear the unhappiness of life. God helps those who suffer valiantly, but not those who have neither strength nor courage. The struggles of life are trials or atonements, and those who bear them with resignation are happy because they receive a great reward. Those who believe that their well-being is a result of chance or luck are quite unfortunate. Chance or luck, to borrow their expressions, may favor them for a time, but afterwards the emptiness of those words becomes apparent. A. Are people who drive an unhappy person to commit this desperate act accountable for the consequences of their action? Yes, and it is severe because they have to answer for those actions as for murder.
Okay. Two different points here, right? First is people that commit suicide to escape from the difficulties in the world, right? You are facing challenges in the world and very difficult challenges, and you don't have, as they say here, neither the strength nor the courage to withstand these struggles, and you end up committing suicide. And the Spirit says here, poor spirits, right? They are going to have to face the consequences, and it will be a challenge for them back in the spiritual world, because it is not because they are bored with life, but because they are not willing to face the challenges that we have in our lives. And we all have challenges, right? We live in a world of trials and atonements. So we all will have to face trials and atonements in our lives. So those that are not prepared or do not want to face these difficulties and commit suicide to escape that, are of course are going to face serious consequences. And again, going back to you kill yourself, you make 6 people, at least on average, not at least on average, you make 6 people suffer a lot. Now, the second question is, what about someone that drives someone else to commit suicide? And this nowadays with social media is something that we hear from time to time. There is a case, a specific case of a girl that that convinced a boy to commit suicide, and I haven't heard anything lately, but she's facing trial for this, right? Because they found the texts, and she tells him clearly, why don't you go ahead and kill yourself? Because he's been trying to tell her that he wanted to kill himself because he was unhappy, and she is being tried for she is being tried for murder. So you see, the Spirit tells us here in 1857 they have to answer for those actions as for a murder, right? And now our laws, that of course are a reflection of the spiritual laws of the spiritual world, we are catching up, right? So human laws are considering those that cause others to commit suicide, force others to commit suicide, guilty of murder, right? I don't know the result of the trial. I haven't heard anything in some time of the trial, but you know, if you it's for us, it's very logic, right? If you force someone or convince someone to kill oneself, you are more guilty than that person, right? Because the same way that you convince a person to kill oneself, you could be the one saving that person from committing suicide, right? Of course, the age of this girl and boy is going to be taken into account. They are not mature enough, so she's going to be tried as an adult, but of course, because I think they were 16 or 15,
Yeah,
16.
they were teenagers.
They were teenagers,
Yes,
yes.
yeah. Yeah. 17, I believe, and the other one was
Yeah.
18, something like, yeah. I remember that story. So sad.
Yes, it is. So the girl is going to have to face the consequences, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And again, even if she's not uh, convicted,
Yeah,
she's
she's
going
gonna.
to carry this guilty
Yeah.
for the rest of her life, and it's going to be very challenging for her because we all have done stupid things when we were teenagers, right? I don't think anyone has not done anything stupid, but we did small stupidities, like someone told me once. When your children are teenagers, you have to pray that they only commit small stupidities, not big stupidities, because they are going to commit stupidity.
Yeah.
And we all did, if we look honestly at ourselves, we don't have to share here, but we can always remember some stupid things we did when we were young, right? So again, poor girl that she's going to have to carry this for her life, and it's going to, if she's not convicted, she's going to have to spend a lot of money in psychiatrists and psychologists and all these things, right? Because in the end, she has to answer for this action, right? It's the natural law. You are responsible for what you do, right? So
Absolutely.
Also these days of internet, those challenges on TikTok,
uh,
those
yeah,
are
Oh God.
also the same group of
yes.
problems.
Yeah, yes, but again, we have to be careful to separate things, right? Because I think it was last week in Brazil, a girl died of this rope challenge.
Yeah,
How is it called?
jump rope.
Jump rope, yes, because the rope was not attached correctly, and she jumped and fell and died. And someone asked this program of questions and answers, is this a suicide? Is this a committed crime? And the answer is, this is not a suicide, because
Yeah.
those careless that did not attach the cord correctly, they didn't want to kill the girl. It's manslaughter, right? Which is what it's called. But she didn't want to commit suicide. It's a dangerous thing, yes. But when you're flying on a plane, there is always the danger. It's very small. It's smaller than having a car accident, but there is the plane can fall. Is it a suicide because you decide to fly? No, right? So again, we have to be careful how we analyze these things, right? These TikTok challenges, people that create the challenges, they are going to be responsible for the consequences, yes. But if people die because of the challenges, that was not their intention originally. They will know. Their conscience will tell them, because some of these challenges are, yeah. Yeah, but anyway, we are only responsible for, the actions that we are voluntarily causing.
We also have our goodwill goodwill.
Good intention.
Yeah,
No.
correct. Not to do that.
Yes.
Good sense.
Good sense. But when they say that our brain is only fully developed when we are 25, especially the sense of danger. It only fully forms when we are 25. So a lot of teenagers and young people, they like to take these risks, and it's not an attempt to commit suicide. They challenge themselves, they challenge their friends, and they think it's fun because they don't have fully developed the concept of danger. Again, you have to face responsibilities. Nothing happens without us facing responsibilities, but the degree of responsibility varies according to your knowledge, your understanding, your and everything else involved.
Yes.
Okay? All right.
John, may I ask a question, John? This is
Okay.
Carol. Yeah, recently I believe there was a case of a young man who committed suicide based on an artificial intelligence or an AI robot or a robotic rapport with a robotic relationship. So that even makes it more complicated. It's,
Yeah.
something
They-
we'll be hearing about probably more and more, unfortunately.
Yes, when we are going to talk about AI, right? Who is responsible here, right? Because AI is a machine, but a machine was created by someone, right? But the person who created the machine, it's like you blaming those that create that discover internet by all the horrible things that you can see on the internet. What about the beautiful things, right?
Mhm.
They just released the AI in Brazil only for spirituality. It's called Socrates. It's an AI focused on religious and spirituality that on all the aspects that help people answer your questions about spirituality with a vast database. So again, you create when those that created AI created something that is an advancement, is a progress, but it is dangerous because we don't know yet how to fully regulate and control it. So this is happening. Someone that killed oneself because of an interaction with AI, who is at fault? Someone, right?
Yeah.
But we don't. It's difficult for us here to talk about it because it is very faceless responsibility, right? So it's very difficult for us to. You cannot blame those that invented AI because you have to blame them and reward them at the same time because the AI is being used for beautiful things today, right? Of course, as we talked, Elmo, that work in the medical profession, right? As we talked about Dr. Google, right? People that arrived with what they had explained by Dr. Google. Nowadays with AI is even worse because people search for answers and AI give the answers. And by what I read, a lot of the answers given by AI on the medical field are just plainly wrong. But they give good answers also, right? Of course, explanations. That if you are the doctor prescribed two different medicines and you want to read about the medicines, the AI helps a lot to explain what they cause, the effects, side effects, and everything. But you cannot ask AI if you should take the medicine or not. That's the question that should be answered by a doctor. But again, you ask AI if you should take the medicine. AI tell you to take the medicine, and you get worse of your problem with who you are going to blame. It's difficult. It's challenging. We don't have the answer. Unfortunately, we still don't have the answer. Okay.
Okay. Yes. 947.
947.
Yes. Okay. If the struggle with adversity discourages a person and he or she allows himself or herself to die of despair, is Is this considered suicide? This is suicide. But those who caused the crime or could have prevented it are more to blame than the victims, and the latter are judged compassionately. Nevertheless, they are not absolved completely if they have shown a lack of resolve and perseverance or have failed to make the best use of their intelligence to help themselves. It is even harder for them if pride paralyzes their intelligence, or they're embarrassed or to earn a living by manual labor and prefer to die of starvation rather than deviate from their social standing. Is there not 100-fold more honor and dignity in bearing adversity, braving the ill-natured remarks of the vain and selfish, whose goodwill is only for those who are in want of nothing, and who turn a cold shoulder to all who are in need of help? To throw away one's life on account of such people is even more absurd, seeing that they are completely indifferent to the sacrifice.
Okay, so here we're talking about those that die of despair, meaning they have no resources to continue living and die out of despair. And the spirits start by saying, this is a suicide, but those who can cause the crime and could prevent it are more to blame. Nevertheless, if they could have done something not to die in this manner, they are also responsible, because they go on to explain, if we don't look for answers to our problems, if we don't try to find ways to survive, then we are going to be responsible for our own death. But anyway, in this case, society has more responsibility than the individual in general terms. But it goes back to what is the intention, right? The word that Elmo used here that is very important, right? Someone that allows him or herself to die by with the intention of showing to the world that the world doesn't care about them, you are consciously committing suicide, right? Because you want to prove something to the world, and they say in the end here, to throw away one's life on account of such people is even more absurd, seeing that they are completely indifferent to the sacrifice, right? We can talk here a little bit, if we deviate a little bit from this question. You can ask, what about those people that put themselves on fire in a protest, right? Die of a suicide protesting against something. What's their responsibility? They are responsible. They make a conscious choice. Of course, the reason they make the choice, it's going to take in consideration, because they know they may believe in life after death, because those that commit suicide out of sick of life, they think that everything ends here. Now, those that kill themselves in protest, they may believe in afterlife, and they may think that that's the best way to show. So when they reach on the other side, what's their state of mind? They understand that they died, right? So they'll be more open to receive the assistance. Because those that kill themselves without believing that there is an afterlife will be close to the assistance, because they don't believe they died. But those that kill themselves knowing what they are doing and believing that there is a continuation, that they are doing something heroic for their country or for the group and everything, they are less responsible than someone that kills oneself out of other, lack of options or boredom or things like that. But again, it is a crime. You are killing yourself. It is against natural law. You have to face the consequences. But you are going to receive a different kind of assistance back in the spiritual world because of the intention, because of the circumstances, right? Circumstances uh, also count. And I remember someone that asked me this question in one of the times we studied this book, right? Which is the famous cases of those that when they had the Twin Towers jumped from the top because the fire was consuming, right? If that was a suicide. And the answer is no, because they didn't want to themselves, they want to save themselves. And that was the only way they could think of to try to save themselves, right? They didn't want to die. They found themselves in a situation where their only option was to jump in order to not be burned, right? So it's not a suicide. So you see how is the intention playing the role here, right? We always go back to the intention.
There is one of the Kardec's magazine, the Spiritual Review. There is a case of the woman who suicide. That she appeared in a leadership meeting. They were astonished that her suicide was on the news for some 3 or 4 days, and in 3 or 4 days she was already able to go into a leadership meeting. They were, but thought suicide would go far away and they would not be able to communicate, would be in bad shape. And then came the explanation. This woman committed suicide at the time of Kardec. She was caught stealing bread. And she ran away. The police went after her. They found her house. And she said, well, if they take me to jail now, just stealing bread to give to the kids, they're gonna put me in jail and my kids gonna be offering no assistance. If I kill myself, by law, the government gonna have to take care of my kids. So she committed suicide to provide a future for the sons. And she said in that leadership meeting when she appeared that she's not in the greatest shape there. She's still suffering, but it was explained to her that because the intention was to make something better for the kids, that it was tremendously alleviated the consequences of an average suicide of someone who kills out of panic or anything else. So there is, as John said at the beginning, everything is case by case. And everything's that the word intention again comes, why are you doing this? But not why, but what for? What is your objective? It's to run away from a challenge, it's run away from pain, or to make your life better for the kids and that kids. Everything's still going about.
There is the other case of that individual that killed himself because his son was going to have to go to war, and the law at the time was that if the son was responsible for taking care of the family, he wouldn't have to go to the war. So the man killed himself, so his son would become responsible for the family and wouldn't be sent to war, which is. It's not exactly like, it's a little more serious than the case of the woman that Elmo just said, because it's a kind of a gray area, right? You kill yourself so your son doesn't go to war. There is no guarantee that your son is going to die in the war, right? Different from the woman that her kids would go to be abandoned if she didn't commit suicide. But again, what was the intention of him? To protect his son, to protect his wife, to protect his family. So the intention, it's a voluntary suicide, but it's not a suicide with the intention of running away from life. It's just because he couldn't see a better solution for the family. So of course he's going to receive the type of assistance that is different from those that commit suicide out of the different things that we mentioned here.
I think nowadays individuals who go with hunger strike with for one cause if you like that cause, if you don't like that cause, it's not the case for here. But individuals, now the law intervene and they fit those guys intravenous. They do not allow them to die anymore. Because then the system would be guilty of allow someone to die and they could prevent it.
Yeah. Not everywhere, right? Because
Not everywhere.
because the main politician opposing Putin in Russia died of hunger strike, and they didn't do any effort to save him, right? But it's a good question, right? It is a suicide also. It's a voluntary suicide, but again, it's someone that had his motives, right? Wouldn't it be better if he continued alive? Yes, but it's difficult to analyze his particular situation, right?
Gandhi used the static a couple of times, right?
Yes, Gandhi did that, yes. But again, in the end, these are still voluntary suicides, so they have the consequences of voluntary suicides if you die of a hunger strike, right? Involuntary is a different thing, right? And again, we won't get there today, but we can just mention, which is a question that we're going to have next week. Someone jumps in front of a car to save someone and is killed by the car, right? Is this a suicide? No, because the intention was not to kill oneself. On the contrary, it was to save someone else. So it has even more merit than you sacrifice yourself to help to save someone else, right? So
Like those teachers on one of those shootings.
on the shootings that
put yourself in front of the kids.
Yes, absolutely. That's a great example. This is absolutely not a suicide. It's an heroic act, right? And you are going to, and again, you go back to the intention, right?
Yes.
The intention was a noble intention. So when you go back, when you arrive back in the spiritual world, first, when you get your bearings back, you know what you did, and you are happy with the choice you made, right? You made the right choice. You are fully aware that you made the right choice. So you are open to receive the assistance, and the assistance is there, right? The key word that Elmo brought, and I think is great, is intention. In the end, it's intention, right? Voluntary. This teacher that puts her, it's not her intention. It's not voluntary. She's trying to save kids, right? And I read a case of one this week of some shooting in Colorado that happened, and this guy that had a gun, and one of those guys that love guns, and he shot and killed the shooter, and the police went and shoot him because they thought he was another shooter. Yeah, so again, not a suicide. He was trying to help, and he was killed, right? Yeah. All right. So I think we stop here. It's a very deep conversation. We have some, and this next question, it's a heavy one also, right? So let's start with it next week. Okay. So this Saturday is the talk we have at the United States Spiritist Federation is by Brian Vosberg from Florida. Your journey thus far should be an interesting topic. This Sunday we have our Q&A session. Please bring your questions at 11 a.m. Book Club is on vacations until middle of August. And I think that's it for us. Carol, can you do our final prayer?
Yeah, sure can. Thank you very much, John, for hosting for us this evening. Thank you, Elmo, for helping us. Thank you, Sarita, for reading for us this evening. And thanks for everyone in their participation tonight. Infinite Creator and Divine Providence, we give thanks to be together for our studies of the Spirit's Book, Book 4, Chapter 1, Distaste for Life / Suicide. The distaste for life may be the result of lack of faith, boredom, idleness, and perhaps a lack of belief in the afterlife. It is selfish to end life by suicide, and not only this affects the individual, but affects at least 6 other individuals. Voluntary suicide is against God's law. Intentional suicide is a complex act and results in an overwhelming state of confusion, which may block assistance and healing in the spiritual world. In the case of insanity, this particular soul will not be abandoned and will be assisted in a more efficient way. Resolve and persistence is a choice, as well as an intelligent state of mind for facing all despair. Intention is the key. We give thanks to our spiritual benefactors and the good spirits for guiding and inspiring us this evening. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us, and for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, our counselors, our mediums, our workers, and all of our participants. We pray for inner peace, and especially now for world peace, and for those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for our center, SGNY, and all Spiritist centers throughout the world, that they may grow, prosper, expand, and be protected throughout the day and throughout the night. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to our family, our friends, loved ones, and coworkers. And may we remind ourselves now to go forth as beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service, and charity, which is love in action. May peace and love prevail. So be it.